We buy smaller buildings. Those giant Amazon buildings are 1 million square feet, 1.5 million square feet, 800,000. We buy what we call Class B buildings. They're a little bit older and they're a lot smaller, and mostly they're infill, which means they're close to the city of Chicago, or they're in the city, or they're very close to O'Hare Airport. That's sort of like there's a diameter around the airport in the city that maybe is 4 miles. Everything that's beyond 4 miles is the hinterlands. It's like it's way out there. And the problem that I've learned is in bad markets, because I've been through 4 downturns, in bad markets, those areas that are far out are the last to lease when there's vacancies. And when companies have expanded into those areas, a lot of those companies are not quite as well established. And so when the downturn hits, they may not be prepared financially to withstand all of the financial turmoil. So I have learned that closer in is better. And I love manufacturing companies as tenants because they generally don't leave very much. They stay in the buildings. The average industrial tenant in manufacturing in our buildings has stayed 18 years, and it's going to be longer because some of them are still there and they're not leaving.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So what's an ideal type of property then? Is it like multiple garage bay doors with manufacturers in each one, or is it one tenant in a whole property? Or how's that? What do you target?
Yeah, we like the single tenant buildings.
Okay.
They're easier to manage than multi-tenant. There's no fighting over who's got the parking space or who pays for the damage to the sidewalk or any of that stuff. But companies like to have their own freestanding building where they're not connected by a wall to another company, especially manufacturers, because they can make some noise, they could make some odors depending on what they're doing, especially food companies. If you're next to a company that's doing baking of chocolate or something like that, which we do have one of those tenants, the smell wafts
Yeah.
into the space next door if there's a common wall. There's no way to make it perfectly airtight. But in a freestanding building, the smells, the odors may go outside the building, but they don't permeate into the neighbor's space. So a neighbor may be manufacturing components for your headphones. They don't want to be smelling chocolate all day.
Yeah. Either they're 300 pounds then, or they hate chocolate at the end of the day, one or the other. There's no middle ground.
Right.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. And we've had the flex space multi-tenant operators on the show before, and there's obviously pros and cons to both, but it makes a ton of sense around the ease of management, long-term tenants, that sort of thing. So when did you transition, or I guess it sounds like you started with all cash right from the start. So did you ever consider using financing, or how did you decide that you were going to stick with this all cash strategy?
Yeah. So we've done 100 deals. We've sold 80. I've lost money on a few, but I have lost money on deals, and my investors have lost with me. And primarily, if you look back to the 4 downturns since 1989, there was a savings and loan crisis and a Gulf War. There was the 2008 disastrous global crisis. All these downturns, they're inevitable. And what happened was I was doing all cash deals for the first few, and then I brought in a young partner who was 10 years younger than I was, very aggressive, very ambitious. And he said, Joel, it's so stupid that we're not borrowing. We should be like everybody else and borrow money. And at that time, cap rates were 10%. If you bought a building, it was very easy to do the math. If you bought a building for $1 million, your return was 100,000. And as interest rates would go up and down, if rates were low, my partner's point was we can get positive leverage and make much higher returns, which we did. However, when things go bad and you got leverage, you make much worse losses because they're magnified by the percentage of your debt. So we ended up doing most of our deals between 2004 and 2009. with debt. And we didn't think we were taking a lot of risk because my partner convinced me 60% loan to value ratio is really safe. Guess what? It's not that safe.
Mm.
It's only safe if things are good and tenants stay in the buildings and you don't have vacancy and you don't have to put a new roof on for $500,000. Things happen. So my partner, unfortunately, passed away at age 48
Mm.
in 2017. And at that point, he stopped pushing me because he wasn't around. He stopped pushing me to do deals with debt. And I woke up one day and I said, I used to do deals all cash, no mortgage, and it felt so good. But it's hard because you have to raise more money. If you have a 75% loan to value ratio on a $4 million deal, you only have to raise $1 million from investors. You borrow $3 million. It's easy money. It's kind of, I call it lazy money. Call the bank. Hey bank, I need $3 million. Sure, Joel. And if things are fine and good, it's sure, Joel. We'll transfer the money right into your account right now. And then when things go bad and you owe the bank money, they say, hey, we're going to put you in default and start our proceedings for your building being foreclosed upon. It's like, well, wait a minute. How about the sure, Joel? Well, things are bad now. We have regulators. We have a president. We have a board of directors. We have to come after you and take the building away and then put it into receivership. So we didn't have a lot of those, but we had enough that it felt really bad. It's like, when you throw up when you're sick and you've got like the stomach flu or food poisoning, you know how bad that feels. You don't want to do that.
Yeah.
It was just like that. It was similar.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that again. It didn't feel good. It was not good. It was not good for my investors. It was not good for my reputation. It was not good for my mental health. So I decided Dave had passed away. I'm going to go do all cash deals again, like I did very safely before he came along. And that's what we do now. And I have to raise a lot of money, and it's much harder to raise 4 times as much and explain the deal multiple times to many people.
Yeah.
But it's great because I feel like I can sleep at night and not worry about what happens if rates go up or if the market goes down.
Yeah. Yeah. And I imagine you probably are speaking to a specific type of investor, because I would think that most people who are used to like a typical syndication where there's bank financing, they're going to go, well, why aren't you raising bank financing and leveraging this, right? So it's probably people who want a cash deal, right? So can you kind of explain who your private money partners are?
Yeah, they're mostly individuals. They run the gamut from being owners of businesses, wealthy families, people who uh, used to be a dentist or a doctor that sold their practice. It's mainly people who are over 40. I don't have too many. I have some, but not too many younger, because the younger people want to take more risks. They don't mind the debt, and I don't mind them. I'm not against debt. I'm just against debt for me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fine if they do deals, and they should, with people who borrow money safely and carefully. But my investors are what you call the top 3%. You've heard of the top 1% of people in the United States. Those are the wealthiest people. The top 1%, to qualify in the United States, you have to have a net worth of approximately 11 to $12 million. Those are the top 1%.
Okay.
It falls very quickly in the top 2% down to about 5.5 million. And then the top 3% are down to about 3 million. So generally speaking, most of our investors are in the top 3%. I'd say roughly a third, a third, a third, top 1%, a third of them, top 2%, a third, and the 3 million-ish net worth, about a third. And they invest with me anywhere from 25,000 per deal to 250,000. Some are a little higher, some are in between. And so when I do a deal, I raise roughly $1.5 million, 2 million, 3 million. Last year we raised 13 million for one deal. It was hard. It's hard to raise 13 million, 100,000 at a time. You need 130 people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I know almost every one of our investors personally, and when I put a deal out, I send it to them personally, and they can call me anytime and talk about the details with me, which is really fun for me because I learn from their questions things I might not have thought of because I can't think of everything. And my investors are smart as hell. They're really, really smart people. They didn't become the top 1, 2, or 3% by being idiots.
Yeah.
They became that because they were strategic and they were smart, or they were lucky and they inherited money from their grandfather. That's part, some of those, which is great.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's the easy way. There's a what do they call that? The lucky sperm
Yeah.
club.
Yeah. Exactly. I think Charlie Munger used to say that. Yeah.
Charlie Munger. He had so many great
Yeah.
sayings. But I love Warren Buffett saying that rule number one is don't lose money, and rule number two is go back to rule number one.
Yeah. That's right.
Um, but I have to tell you, Kirby, about something that I'm doing now. Look, first of all, finding industrial buildings to buy in Chicago of the size that we like is really difficult.
Yeah, that's what I was curious about. And also to make it worthwhile for an all cash deal too. Probably, that makes it even harder.
Yeah, the sales come from what I call the 5Ds. The people who are sellers, we just bought one from somebody who was in the middle of a divorce. He needed some cash to pay his future ex-wife. So divorce, death, disease, someone's sick, they want to get rid of it. Dissolution of a partnership, that means partners want to be done with each other. They've had enough of each other. They're ready. And probably the best one is family dysfunction. When a family owns a building and there's a bunch of cousins, they want to get rid of each other. So 5Ds. We have to find, so there's 3,000 buildings in the size range in the location that we would buy in the Chicago area. So I've only got a universe of 3,000. And I've owned 100 of them, and now we only own 20 because we've sold 80. But in order to buy a lot of buildings, which is what we like to do, we have to be actually contacting the owners because we don't know who's got one of the 5Ds unless we talk to all of them.
Mm.
So we have a program where we talk to the industrial real estate brokers through emails and phone calls, and we say, bring us your deals. But we have another thing, it's summertime now, and I believe in working with teaching and benefiting from summer interns. So we just hired 8 summer interns from local Midwest colleges who are on their summer break from school, mostly between their sophomore and junior year or their junior and senior year. And those 8 people are coordinated by someone in my office who is the sort of administrative head of all this. And we send them out. We've taught them how to go door to door in industrial parks like I did when I was 22.
Mm.
And they go in pairs and sometimes even with 3 or 4 of them, which is really funny to see this happen.
Yeah.
They walk in the front door of an industrial building and they ask for the owner by name. And we literally have 3,000 offers that we've already written up, one-page offers, and they walk in the door with an offer to buy the building and hand it to the owner.
As a 19-year-old kid.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah.
That's amazing.
And they say, hey, I'm an intern, and I work for Joel. I don't know if you know him, but he owns a bunch of industrial buildings, and he's looking to buy buildings. He'll buy this one and lease it back to you if you want to stay, or if you want to move out, he'll buy it vacant. And I've got this fantastic training program where we role play with these people and we teach them what to say and how to respond. And then we have a group of them that does follow-ups 2 weeks later because making the first call is first base. You know, when you're in baseball, if you don't go all the way around all the bases, you can't score. You got to go all the way to first, second, third, and then home.
Mm.
And it's the same way in trying to buy a building. First base is walking in the door the first time, meeting them and giving them the offer. Second base is stopping in again in a follow-up. Third base, calling them or following up again. And then home is working through what the building's worth, making sure that your offer makes sense, talking about the details of a contract, and then going forward to make a contract with the seller and buy the property. And then we have to do our due diligence to make sure the building's actually got a good roof, good heating system, zoned properly, doesn't have anything that's hidden that we don't know about. There's a sprinkler system. All that kind of thing is due diligence. Environmental and industrial is really important. We make sure there's no spills of contaminated
Mm.
liquids and things like that. So right now we're in this period where all these young college people are going door to door to my favorite 3,000 buildings. We're hitting up 200 buildings a week. We're making 200
Wow.
offers a week.
Wow.
It's costing me a
Yeah.
fortune, and I hope it's worth it.
Yeah.